When you're working with groups to discuss complex topics or things where there might be real nuance to the ideas and perspectives being shared, facilitation cards or conversation prompts can be a really good way to guide or support the conversation. And the wonderful thing about using facilitation cards is that one set of cards, regardless of what sort of cards they are, can be used in a whole bunch of different ways. In this video, I'm going to share 3 activities using these quote cards that get people talking in all sorts of different ways. And I'm going to show you where you can download a set of the cards and others absolutely free. Hi, I'm Kerry Price. I'm the founder of the Facilitators Network, and I use the principles of deliberate generosity to make sure that no meeting or workshop is ever wasted. I've been a professional facilitator for over 20 years, and in that time I've led thousands of meetings, workshops and community conversations, and now I help other trainers and facilitators do it well too. What I love about card decks is that you can take one tool and use it in a variety of different ways. So when you're packing your facilitator's toolkit, you can throw the cards in your bag and you know you'll always have an activity up your sleeve. Activity 1 is called Wise Words Continuum. And I use this activity when I'm hoping to surface the different ideas, values or worldviews that exist within a group. Now, it's not necessarily that those particular worldviews are things we're going to explore some more, but it's about recognizing that there are things that people will agree on and things that people won't agree on, but often that changes depending on context. So how this works is I invite people to imagine that there is a continuum running through the room based on how strongly someone agrees or disagrees with a statement. So I will pull a quote card from the pack. This one happens to say, chaotic action is preferable to orderly inaction. And I will call that quote out and invite people to stand on the continuum based on how much they strongly agree or strongly disagree with the statement. Some people will absolutely gravitate to one end of the scale or the other, and then there'll be a whole bunch of people in between. I then invite people to turn to their neighbour or form groups of 3 or 4 and discuss why they've chosen to stand where they've chosen to stand. We popcorn a couple of those responses back into the group, and then we play again by choosing another quote. This one says, it's just a matter of understanding what's necessary and disciplining yourself to do it. Again, people swap places on the continuum based on how much they agree or disagree with the statement. After 3 or 4 or 5 of those quotes, people will start to notice that on some things they agree really strongly with one person, and on other things there's a big disagreement with that same person. And it's a great way to illustrate that we'll agree with some of the people some of the time, none of the people some of the time, all of the people some of the time. You know what I'm trying to say. Once we've done that activity for 5 or 6, 10 minutes, we then have a little bit of a debrief. What did you notice about that activity? What influenced where you were standing on the line? What might have you said to the person at the other end of the continuum to argue your point? How might you need to be in order to listen to somebody else's point of view? This opens up a whole conversation around how we need to show up in the room so that everybody's opinions and perspectives can be heard. Activity 2 is a way to use these quote cards as stimulus for creative thinking. So when you're doing a brainstorming session and you need people to think about ideas or solutions from a different frame of mind, I introduce these quote cards to encourage them to think a little bit differently. So after people have had an initial round of brainstorming where they have brain dumped all of the ideas they already have, I then invite them to draw a card from the quote card pack and think about the problem solving or ideation from that frame of mind. So for example, This one says, there is a time to deliberate and a time to act. Learn to recognize which is which and act accordingly. If I was trying to solve this problem after being given this advice, what might be the next steps that I take? Or it might say that a new idea must not be judged by its immediate results. If I was trying to solve a problem, keeping this advice in mind, what might be some of the ideas that spring to mind? Once people have used that particular piece of advice to come up with new ideas, I invite them to swap cards and start their brainstorming all over again. Activity 3 is called Our Unwritten Rules. And I often use this activity with teams who are looking to explore their organisational culture. Because here's the thing, culture is not just a set of values that sits up on the wall and nobody really adheres to. And culture is not having ping pong tables or afternoon drinks on a Friday. Culture is the unwritten rules that everyone in the organisation lives by, even though they've never really been said out loud. So how this activity works is I lay the quote cards out on the floor and I invite participants to gather around and choose quote cards that represent the unwritten rules in their organisation. The things that everybody lives by but perhaps doesn't share out loud. So for example, someone might pull this one, a new idea must not be judged by its immediate results. And they will share that, you know, in this organisation, we give things time to grow and test and evolve before deciding that we're going to toss it out. No one's actually said that out loud, but that really is the way that we do things around here. Or they might choose, diligence is the mother of good luck. And they'll explain that, you know, no one has ever said to me that hard work and committed effort is required in this job, but I look around and everyone's just doing that. We're all just got this really good work ethic where we show up and we're committed and we're diligent to the cause. Once everyone has chosen a quote card, shared what they think the unwritten rules are, we do a little bit of a debrief around things like, how easy was it to find the unwritten rules? Were there ones that were just already in your mind, or did you really have to think about what they were? Which of those unwritten rules do you think are helpful for the team or for the organisation? Which of those unwritten rules do you think is actually causing conflict or frustration? Which of those unwritten rules do you think we might need to formalise and actually embed into the way we do things around here? You can ask all sorts of different debriefing questions depending on what you're trying to surface, but ultimately it's about bringing the unsaid into the said. People get to talk about it out loud in the room. Of course, if you want to do any of these activities, you're going to need some quote cards. So head on over to my website where you can download a set of these cards, as well as a bunch of other cards, absolutely free. The link is in the description below. Go check it out.